Well, Chelsea topped the spending by Premier League clubs during the transfer window, and the league's total far exceeded that of other European leagues. £125 million was invested in new players, almost 3 times the amount paid by the second highest league in Europe. Well, joining us is the former Barcelona Director of Marketing, Esteve Calzada, who's published a report on transfer trends across Europe. Esteve, a very warm welcome to you. Welcome to Sky Sports News this morning. As we just said there, Premier League clubs spending so much more than any other league in Europe, 3 times more than Italy, 5 times more than Germany, and 10 times more than Spain in that January window that's just gone. Why is that?
I think it's a combination of factors. The main one is the wealth of the competition. Obviously, there's the very lucrative TV deals, which are the most important in the world. And there's a new cycle in which the teams have managed to collect much more money. And it's more money overall, but then equally distributed to teams as opposed to other competition, which means that not only the top teams have the ability to sign, but also those teams that are smaller that get nice money out of the TV contracts. And then on the other side, I would say that in here, there's much more pressure from the fans to bring players as opposed to other leagues.
As we look at those figures, I mean, it's markedly more than League One and as you can see, more than 10 times more than La Liga. How much does fans' pressure bring to bear? And what would you say is the biggest factor behind that spending we're looking at there?
Well, obviously, the Premier League is always ahead of the other league, not just in the winter transfer window, but overall. And normally, we don't see this big difference. I mean, ultimately, the Premier League has spent close to 1 billion, close to 900 million in euros, and still ahead, but not this big difference, right? Then there's also a combination of factors, including names, right? We saw the Torres deal taking place in winter, along with the Carroll deal as a consequence. Then also we've seen the Mata movement that brought money to Chelsea that Chelsea was able to spend. We were listening to Mourinho yesterday making the calculations and actually doing the report for us. And ultimately, I mean, at the end of the day, winter is a bigger difference, and at the end, ultimately, the owners and the executives don't take decisions based on the pressure from the fans, but still makes an impact, yes.
Yeah. Do you think clubs struggle to get value for money when they make signings in January?
It's unpredictable. I mean, you cannot see a pattern. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not successful, and actually you could argue how do you define that a transfer is successful or not. We've seen many different examples, and you cannot really say.
And as we look at the top 10 spenders there across Europe, what does that tell us about the respective positions and situations at those clubs? Chelsea top, Manchester United second. There's a big drop to PSG in France. What can we read into that, Esteve?
Well, I would say Chelsea, knowing that they were selling Mata, they wanted to bring Matic and fill that hole in the team. And actually, we always like to talk about net spending, which is basically deducting the sales out of the expenditure. And then it also says about the Manchester United situation in the table. Normally, I mean, if there's a top team which ultimately is not doing a good season, it has more pressure to improve the results, because we normally see that those teams that invest more normally get a better pitch performance. It's proven by the numbers. Yeah. And then, again, as I was saying, it has to do with market opportunities, with injuries. We saw Berbatov going to Monaco on the basis of the Falcao injury. So the market makes every year there are different factors that impact the ultimate outcome.
We heard an interesting quote from Arsene Wenger actually not too long ago, saying that he made a last-minute buy and he maybe wouldn't have made that choice. Do you think there is such a thing as a panic buy?
It's Kim Shellstrom, isn't it?
Yeah.
There is, but I think that more and more teams try to have the right rationale to take the decisions, and I can tell about teams that were trying to get deals in the last minute, but ultimately the selling teams try to take advantage of that, increasing the price, and then the team just pulling off. So there is the panic, but not necessarily in the winter transfer window, I would say.
Esteve, we saw in January more than 70 young players were sent out on loan from Premier League clubs, and yet there was this £125 million spent. Is the January, or has this January window been a blight to the career aspirations of some of our homegrown young talent? And is that a trend that is specific to the UK, or is that Europe-wide?
I think it's very specific to both UK and Italy. Italy is also a market which works a lot on loans and have very wide squads. So, but the difference in the Premier League, I would say, is that you are allowed to do short-term transfers. Short-term loans. So you can loan a player for weeks, and then get him back, send him somewhere else, and that gives a good opportunity for the top teams to get their young players into the pitch and get experience in lower-profile teams.
Yeah. Also noticeable was a lack of upward mobility. I think Tom Ince was the only player who moved from the Championship up to the Premier League. I mean, that's got to be a concern when you look at the national side and how many players are coming through to play for England, isn't it?
Yeah, that was the only one, and but I think there should be more to come, honestly.
How much emphasis around Europe is there on the loan market?
It's big. It's big, especially sometimes it's by planning, but sometimes it's by obligation. So especially in Spain, where the teams are struggling financially speaking, the sporting directors try to be creative, so try to do deals like bringing players on loan or trying to bring some investors on, which is something which is not allowed in here. But in Spain, you can buy a player along with investors and share a stake in the economic rights of the player. So sometimes it's by necessity, sometimes it's because the teams want to get the players with experience somewhere else. It's a combination of factors.
But something that isn't maybe utilised as much in this country.
I think it's going to be more and more, and even it's interesting how teams, even top teams, don't even buy players from lower profile teams. So we saw Milan bringing a player from Fulham on loan, and it's a bigger team which you would expect to buy the player and not loan the player. So the loan has the advantage that if you get it wrong, there's a solution into it, as opposed to signing a 4-year deal or paying a big transfer amount.
It was interesting, wasn't it, to hear in January some of the managers saying, look, I wouldn't be unhappy to see this window, an end to this window. I mean, the current system was introduced back in 2002. Do you see a long-term future for the January window, despite some opposition from some managers?
I think that for those that we like football, it's great that the market is open. It brings, even for any stakeholder like media. I mean, I was shocked when I arrived. I've only been living here for a couple of months. I mean, seeing you guys with the deadline, how many hours were left, I haven't seen this anywhere else. Yeah. So just on the basis of that, I think it brings passion, it brings an extra type of content, and I really like it. And also, I am also a football agent, so it's just one more opportunity to try to do business.
And you like the way we did transfer deadline day, did you?
I really
Jim White
like
with
it.
a gold tie, and so you enjoyed that?
Don't comment on the gold tie.
Thumbs up from Esteve for transfer deadline day. Great. Thanks very much for joining us, guys, this morning.